Imagine boarding a plane, excited for a well-deserved trip, only to face humiliation before even taking your seat. That's exactly what happened to Miss Eleanor Williams, a kind-hearted and accomplished elderly black woman who had just upgraded to first class as a special treat for herself. She stood at the gate, ticket in hand, her heart light and filled with anticipation. But when she approached the first-class cabin, a flight attendant stopped her cold. "You must be mistaken," the attendant said with a condescending smirk, her eyes scanning Eleanor up and down. "First class isn't for you." Confused, Eleanor tried to explain, but the attendant wouldn't budge, treating her like she didn't belong. Passengers around her exchanged uneasy glances, but no one stepped in to help. Humiliated but calm, Eleanor quietly took her seat in economy. What the flight attendant didn't know was that Miss Williams wasn't just anyone. She had spent her life overcoming obstacles, and this moment would not break her. In fact, it was about to spark a bold, life-changing decision that would turn the entire airline industry on its head. What did Eleanor do next? Stay tuned, because this story is about to take flight. As Eleanor sat in the cramped economy seat, staring out the window, memories of her past flickered in her mind. She had faced prejudice before, far too many times to count. Born and raised during a time when opportunities were scarce for someone like her, Eleanor had worked tirelessly to create a life of dignity and success. She wasn't just a retired school principal. She was a mentor, a community leader, and someone who had built a legacy of resilience. The flight dragged on, but Eleanor's mind was racing. She couldn't shake the sting of the flight attendant's words or the shame of being dismissed so easily. It wasn't just about a seat, it was about the principle. The quiet humiliation she had endured wasn't new, and that made it even more painful. As she landed and collected her bags, Eleanor resolved not to let this incident fade into yet another forgotten story of injustice. She didn't know exactly what she would do, but she knew she had to act. What the airline didn't realize was that Eleanor had the means, the determination, and the heart to challenge their behavior in a way they'd never see coming. Little did they know, this flight was just the beginning of a much bigger journey. Over the next few days, Eleanor couldn't stop replaying the incident in her mind. It wasn't just the rude flight attendant, it was the silence from everyone around her. It was the idea that someone could look at her, a paying customer, and decide she didn't belong. Sitting at her kitchen table with a cup of tea, Eleanor began jotting down her thoughts. Her granddaughter, Maya, a sharp young lawyer, stopped by to check in and quickly noticed something was on her mind. After Eleanor shared the story, Maya was outraged. "Grandma, this is unacceptable. You have every right to demand accountability." But Eleanor was wise and measured. "I fought my battles with words before, Maya. This time, I want to do something bigger, something that lasts." Together, they started researching the airline. What they found didn't surprise Eleanor. Multiple complaints of discriminatory practices, poor customer service, and a lack of diversity in leadership. This wasn't just her story, it was a pattern. Meanwhile, news of the incident began spreading after a passenger discreetly posted a video online. The clip showed Eleanor standing calmly as the flight attendant dismissed her. People were outraged, but Eleanor wasn't interested in fleeting internet fame. She had a plan, and it was about to take shape in a way that no one could predict. As the video of the incident gained traction, media outlets picked up the story. Eleanor's phone buzzed constantly with calls from reporters, community leaders, and even strangers offering their support. But Eleanor wasn't focused on the noise. Behind the scenes, she and Maya were working tirelessly, piecing together a bold strategy. Eleanor's decades of leadership experience had taught her one thing: true change comes from the top. The airline's CEO, a polished executive known for his dismissive approach to customer complaints, had made no public statement about the incident. Instead, the company released a generic apology that lacked sincerity and failed to address the deeper issue. This fueled Eleanor even more. With Maya's legal expertise and a few well-connected friends from her years in education and activism, Eleanor began exploring a radical idea: acquiring a controlling interest in the airline. It sounded impossible, but Eleanor wasn't starting from scratch. Her late husband had been a savvy investor, and his estate included significant assets Eleanor had never fully tapped into. As the days passed, Eleanor quietly started assembling a coalition of allies: activists, business leaders, and even current airline employees tired of the company's toxic culture. The pieces were coming together, but time was running out. A board meeting was on the horizon, and Eleanor had one shot to make her move. The question loomed: would it be enough to change the course of an entire corporation? As the board meeting approached, Eleanor and Maya worked late into the night, finalizing their strategy. They had quietly secured enough shares to make their presence impossible to ignore, but just as things seemed to fall into place, an unexpected complication arose. An anonymous whistleblower, claiming to be an airline insider, reached out to Maya with alarming information. The whistleblower revealed that the airline's leadership was aware of ongoing discriminatory practices, but had deliberately buried complaints to protect their reputation. Even worse, they were planning to shift blame for the recent uproar onto lower-level employees, framing the flight attendant as the sole problem to pacify public outrage. This revelation lit a fire in Eleanor. "They're not just dismissive, they're calculated," she said, her voice firm. Determined to expose the truth, Eleanor decided to take an even bolder step. She prepared a speech for the board meeting, one that would not only address her personal experience, but also call out the systemic issues within the airline. However, just hours before the meeting, another twist emerged. The airline's CEO caught wind of Eleanor's plans and moved to block her from attending, claiming her presence was a security risk. For a moment, it seemed like the door was closing. But Eleanor wasn't backing down. Not now, not ever. With Maya by her side and a growing wave of public support, she was ready to face whatever came next. The stage was set for a showdown no one could have anticipated. On the morning of the board meeting, Eleanor and Maya arrived at the airline's headquarters, only to be stopped by security at the door. The CEO's orders were clear. Eleanor was not welcome. But what the airline hadn't counted on was Eleanor's resilience, or the fact that Maya had already filed an injunction to ensure her grandmother's right to attend. A judge's ruling, delivered moments before the meeting, forced the company to let her in. As Eleanor entered the room, the tension was palpable. The board members exchanged uneasy glances, and the CEO sat stiffly at the head of the table. Eleanor began her speech with calm determination, recounting her experience on the flight and laying bare the systemic issues the whistleblower had exposed. Her words were powerful, and the evidence was undeniable. But just as she finished, the unexpected happened. Another shareholder, an older man in the corner who had remained silent, stood up. He introduced himself as James Sterling, a prominent investor with significant influence in the company. "Ms. Williams, your courage is remarkable," he said. "I've been dissatisfied with this company's direction for years. I'd like to join forces with you to ensure we bring real change." The room erupted into chaos. The CEO tried to push back, but it was too late. With Sterling's support, Eleanor's coalition now controlled a majority. The board voted to remove the CEO on the spot, marking a dramatic shift in leadership. But the final twist came days later when Eleanor announced her ultimate plan: not just to reform the airline, but to launch initiatives promoting diversity, fairness, and respect across the entire industry. What had started as an act of humiliation became a story of triumph, proving that even the smallest spark can ignite a powerful movement. In the months that followed, Eleanor's journey became a symbol of perseverance and justice. Under her leadership, the airline underwent sweeping reforms. Policies ensuring equitable treatment of passengers and employees were implemented, and diversity training became a cornerstone of their operations. The culture of silence and disregard was replaced with one of accountability and inclusion. Maya, inspired by her grandmother's determination, spearheaded a legal team to advocate for those who had experienced similar discrimination. Meanwhile, James Sterling helped secure funding for scholarships aimed at supporting underrepresented communities in aviation careers. Together, they turned what had been a painful incident into a force for lasting change. For Eleanor, the journey was never about revenge. It was about ensuring that no one else would have to endure what she had. When she returned to flying months later, now in the first-class seat she'd rightfully earned, passengers and staff alike recognized her not just as a customer, but as a trailblazer. As she looked out the window at the clouds, Eleanor felt a sense of peace. Her story was proof that even the smallest acts of defiance could spark transformations.